The dark side of empathy. When being kind becomes dangerous. There's something nobody tells you about being an empathetic person. Everyone celebrates it. Empathy is presented as one of the highest human qualities. The ability to feel what others feel, to understand without being told, to show up for people in ways that actually matter. And it is all of those things. But there's a side of empathy that doesn't get talked about, a side that isn't beautiful or celebrated, a side that, if you're not careful, can quietly hollow you out from the inside. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when empathy goes wrong. Not because empathy is bad, it isn't, but because understanding the shadow side of something is the only way to use it without being destroyed by it. If you're a deeply empathetic person, this might be the most important thing you hear this year. The first problem: you feel everything, and it costs you. Empathy is not free. Every time you genuinely feel what someone else is feeling, their grief, their anxiety, their loneliness, your nervous system doesn't know the difference between their experience and yours. It processes the pain as if it belongs to you. Because in that moment, functionally, it does. Psychologists call this empathic distress. It's what happens when absorbing other people's emotional states becomes a physical and psychological burden. When you leave a conversation feeling drained in a way that has nothing to do with the conversation's length. When you go home from a gathering carrying emotions that aren't yours. When you lie awake at night with someone else's problem pressing on your chest. Highly empathetic people often describe feeling like emotional sponges. And the problem with being a sponge is that eventually, if you never wring yourself out, you become saturated. You can't absorb anything more. You can't help anyone. You can barely function. This is not a personal failing. It is a physiological limit. And ignoring it doesn't make you more compassionate. It just makes you less capable. The second problem: kind people attract people who need fixing. There's a pattern that shows up again and again in the lives of deeply empathetic people. They attract, almost magnetically, people who are struggling, people in crisis, people with wounds so deep they've been looking for someone safe enough to unload them onto for years. And the empathetic person shows up, fully, completely, with everything they have. And it feels meaningful. It feels like exactly what they're supposed to be doing. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. The relationship has become structurally unequal. One person is consistently giving. The other is consistently taking. And the empathetic person, who is extraordinarily good at understanding other people's needs, is often terrible at recognizing when their own needs are going completely unmet. Psychologists have a term for this dynamic. They call it a complementary relationship, where one person's wound fits perfectly into another person's role. The wounded person needs someone to carry them. The empathetic person needs to be needed. Both people get something from the arrangement, but only one of them is being depleted by it. The third problem: empathy can be weaponized against you. This one is uncomfortable. But it's important. Not everyone who triggers your empathy deserves it. There are people, and they are more common than we like to believe, who have learned, consciously or not, that displaying vulnerability, pain, or need is the most effective way to get what they want from empathetic people. They don't necessarily plan it. They don't sit down and decide to manipulate you. But they have learned through experience that when they show their wounds, empathetic people move toward them. That when they cry, someone fixes it. That when they fall apart, someone holds them together. And so they keep falling apart, not because they're growing, but because falling apart works. The empathetic person, meanwhile, keeps showing up, keeps fixing, keeps giving, and mistakes the intensity of the need for the depth of the connection. The need is real. The connection may not be. The fourth problem: you lose yourself in other people's realities. One of the least discussed costs of deep empathy is what it does to your sense of self. When you are very good at inhabiting other people's perspectives, at seeing through their eyes, feeling through their feelings, understanding their logic from the inside, you can lose track of where they end and you begin. You start to manage your own behavior based on how it will land for them. You suppress your own emotional responses because their responses are louder. You make yourself smaller, quieter, less present, not because anyone asked you to, but because you can feel so clearly what they need that your own needs simply fall away. Psychologists call this enmeshment, and it's one of the most common experiences of highly empathetic people in close relationships. You know everything about how they feel. You've lost track of how you feel. The fifth problem: kindness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's self-abandonment. Here's the hardest truth of all. When an empathetic person gives without limits, when they show up for everyone regardless of the cost to themselves, when they prioritize other people's comfort above their own well-being, when they mistake martyrdom for love, they are not being kind. They are abandoning themselves. And self-abandonment has consequences. It builds resentment, quiet at first, then louder. It creates relationships built on an unsustainable foundation. It teaches the people around you that your needs don't matter because you keep acting as if they don't. Real kindness requires a self to give from. A depleted, resentful, self-abandoned person cannot give real kindness. They can only give performance. And performance eventually breaks down. The most genuinely kind thing you can do, for yourself and for the people you love, is to maintain enough of yourself that your giving comes from abundance rather than depletion. So what do you do with all of this? You don't stop being empathetic. That's not the answer. And it's not possible. Empathy isn't a setting you can turn off. But you can learn to be a witness rather than an absorber, to feel with people without drowning in what they feel, to show up fully without disappearing in the process. You can learn to ask, whose feelings am I carrying right now? Are these mine? You can learn that a boundary is not a wall. It's a door, one that you control, one that lets real connection in while keeping depletion out. And you can learn, slowly, against every instinct you have, that you are not responsible for fixing everyone. You are responsible for yourself, and that is more than enough. If this landed somewhere tender, that's probably the place that needed to hear it most.